Hello and welcome back to Over and Over and Over Again. This is going to be the Arsenal versus Newcastle match preview. Hello, my name is Richard. Welcome back to the channel. And in this video, we are going to look ahead to the first match of 2023. It is a match between the two informed sides in the Premier League as Newcastle United visit the Emirates on Tuesday evening. It's going to be a great game. We're going to look back at the history of the matches between these two famous clubs. We're going to look at a player to watch. We're going to look at some current form. We're going to feature one of the players that's played for both of these clubs. We're going to give you a little bit of team news and also give a score prediction. If that sounds like something you might enjoy, please consider subscribing to the channel. Please give this video a like as well, as it does help the channel to reach a larger audience. So we've got a lot to get through in this video then. So let's get started. So in history then, Arsenal and Newcastle have met on 189 previous occasions. Arsenal have won 83, there's been 38 draws, and Newcastle have won 68. The very first meeting between these two sides came in September 1893. It was actually the very first ever league match for both of these clubs in Division 2. It was played at the Manor Ground in Plumstead. Woolwich Arsenal drew 2-2 with Newcastle United. Arsenal's biggest win in this fixture has been by 5-0. We've done that twice. The first occasion was in September 1960 and then more recently in December 2000. Newcastle's biggest win in this fixture was a 7-0 victory at St James's Park. That match came in October 1925, and it was actually the match that convinced new manager Herbert Chapman to change the system of the team to suit the new offside law which had been brought in that summer. In recent years, we've had the upper hand over Newcastle. In fact, the 2-0 defeat we suffered at St James's Park at the end of last season ended a run of 8 consecutive victories against this opposition. At the Emirates, Newcastle's record is really poor. They haven't scored on this ground in their last 7 matches. That was going back to December 2014 in a 4-1 defeat. Their last goal scorer on this ground was actually Jose Perez, of course, now at Leicester. Arsenal have won the last 11 meetings between the sides at the Emirates. That goes back to November 2010 when Newcastle won 1-0 with a goal from Andy Carroll. Arsenal won all 11 matches since then. Really impressive home record we've got against this opposition. In fact, over the last 43 meetings in all competitions, both home and away, Arsenal have lost just 4 times. We've won 31 of those games, drawing the other 8. So if Newcastle are going to get a result here on Tuesday night, they've certainly got recent history against them. Of course, Arsenal and Newcastle have met in 3 FA Cup finals over the years. In 1932, Newcastle won 2-1. That game, of course, included the famous over-the-line goal for Newcastle's equaliser. Then in 1952, Newcastle won 1-0. Arsenal were down to 10 men for much of that game after an injury to Wally Barnes. Of course, no substitutions back in 1952. And of course, more recently, Arsenal did finally win a cup final against Newcastle. That was in 1998. And of course, that 2-0 victory did seal the first double of Arsene Wenger's reign. So that is then the previous meetings between Arsenal and Newcastle United. Now, quite surprisingly for teams that have such a long history of meetings going back, I say all the way to 1893, there hasn't been that many players that have played for both of these two clubs. Some of the players on that list, Bob Benson from back in the day, also as well Ray Parkin, George Eastham as well, a very famous player that played for both of these clubs. In more recent times, Andy Cole, of course, Sol Campbell as well. Kenny Sansom as well, briefly played for Newcastle at the end of his career. Matthew Debuchy as well, suffered a lot of injuries at Arsenal, didn't he? And of course, currently, Joe Willock playing for Newcastle, of course, so he did sign him from Arsenal just over a year ago. But the player we are going to feature in this particular video is, of course, Malcolm McDonald. Now, McDonald joined Newcastle in 1971 from Luton Town. He scored a hat-trick on his debut against Liverpool, which earned him the nickname Super Mac. He did help Newcastle reach the 1974 FA Cup final, scoring twice in a semi-final against Burnley, but Liverpool won that game 3-0. McDonald did also play in the 1976 League Cup final at Wembley, where Newcastle met Manchester City. He did set up the equalising goal for Alan Gowling, but again, he left with a runners-up medal as Manchester City won that game 2-1. He did leave Newcastle to join Arsenal in the summer of 1976 for a rather strange transfer fee of £333,333, becoming Terry Neal's first signing as the new manager of Arsenal. He did score a hat-trick against Newcastle later that season in a 5-3 victory at Highbury, and he did help Arsenal reach the 1978 FA Cup final, scoring twice in the semi-final victory over Orient at Stamford Bridge. Again, though, he ended up with a third losers medal at Wembley as Ipswich won 1-0. McDonald did suffer a serious knee injury early in the 1978-79 season against Rotherham in the League Cup that kept him out for most of that season. Despite going away to Sweden in the summer of 1979 to get himself fit, he wasn't able to recover sufficiently and had to retire at the age of 29 in August 1979. For Newcastle, he scored 138 goals in 257 appearances before adding another 57 goals to his career at Arsenal in just 108 matches. McDonald also played 14 times for England, scoring 6 goals. All of those appearances did come while he was a Newcastle player, and 5 of his 6 goals did come in one match against Cyprus. So that's a player who's played for both these two famous clubs, of course. Super Mac, Malcolm McDonald. So this is a clash between two of the in-form sides in the Premier League this season. Newcastle have lost just one of their 17 league matches. That was in the 96th minute away at Anfield at the end of August. The 0-0 draw with Leeds on New Year's Eve did end a run of 7 league victories in a row. A run that also has seen them reach the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup. In fact, Newcastle will arrive at the Emirates on Tuesday night unbeaten in 14 matches. Newcastle have actually won 4 of their last 5 away matches in the Premier League, drawing the other one 0-0 at Old Trafford. They've scored 13 goals in those 5 games, conceding just 3. In London then so far this season, Newcastle do have a 100% record with a 4-1 victory at Fulham, followed by a 2-1 success at Tottenham, a game that really convinced Newcastle that maybe they've serious challenges for the top 4 this season. Of course, as we know, Arsenal arrive at this game 7 points clear at the top of the Premier League following that 4-2 victory at Brighton on New Year's Eve. Of course, our only defeat did come at Old Trafford back in September. Only 1 draw since then. The best ever start Arsenal have made to a league season with 14 victories from those first 16 matches. Incredible run. Can we keep it going though against a very, very strong Newcastle side? It's going to be a really big test, isn't it? But current form for both of these two teams suggests that it's going to be a very highly competitive game, possibly one of the matches of the season. We're really looking forward to this one on Tuesday night. So a lot of Newcastle players in good form at the moment, but the one to watch on Tuesday night will probably be Miggy Almiron. He did join Newcastle in January 2019 from Atlanta United. He struggled, didn't he, at first to find his feet in the Premier League, found goals hard to come by. And in fact, in the whole of the 2020-2021 season, he scored just 1 goal. But this season, he's been in fantastic form under Eddie Howe. He's really revitalised his career. He has scored 9 goals in 18 games. That did include a run of 6 goals in 6 games back in October. The goal he scored in the 3-0 victory at Leicester on Boxing Day was his 5th goal in the last 5 away games as well for Newcastle. So he's definitely going to be a player we're going to have to keep an eye on. He tends to play on that right-hand side, doesn't he? Cutting in on to his left foot. So I think the player to watch on Tuesday night for Newcastle is going to be in form Miggy Almiron. So Newcastle's recent injury problems seem to be easing as both Callum Wilson and Alan St-Maximin both came off the bench in that 0-0 draw against Leeds. Whether either of them will be fit to start the game on Tuesday, we don't really know, but they're certainly going to be in contention, and Callum Wilson would clearly improve their attacking options. This is how they lined up against Leeds on New Year's Eve. It was Nick Pope in goal, the back four was Trippier, Shah, Botman and Byrne. In midfield, it was Longstaff, Willock and Bruno Guimaraes. And then the front 3 was Almiron, Woods and Joe Linton. I say Callum Wilson could well be in line to come back into the side for Newcastle. Of course, for Arsenal, we're not really making too many changes, are we? It was good to see Alexander Zinchenko back in the starting lineup at Brighton. He may well feature again. And Emil Smith-Rowe, of course, is now back in training, so he may well be on the bench on Tuesday night. Of course, it was also good to see Tomiyasu back fit again. He also came off the bench against Brighton. So it seems as though a lot of our recent injury problems are also easy. But of course, we are going to be without Gabriel Jesus for the foreseeable future after that knee injury he suffered in the World Cup. Of course, this was how we lined up at Brighton. It was Aaron Ramsdale in goal. The back four was Ben White, Gabriel, William Saliba and Zinchenko. In midfield, it was Thomas Partey, Granit Xhaka, Martin Odegaard, and then the front three was Bukayo Saka, Eddie Nketiah and Gabriel Martinelli. I'm not really expecting any changes to that side on Tuesday night, but we will see. But either way, they're the lineups I'll probably be expecting from both of these teams for this big game on Tuesday. Well, I think it's a really important game for both clubs for maybe slightly different reasons. I think Newcastle will know that if they can come to the Emirates and get a good result, and that will certainly give them the confidence to go on and challenge for a place in the top four. Whereas a victory for Arsenal against one of the informed sides in the league would really put us in a really strong position in terms of belief going forward, that not only can we finish in the top four, but actually challenge Manchester City for that title. I think while we're in this good form, we really do need to take advantage of that, pick up as many points as we can. No doubt once the Europa League kicks back in again, we've got the FA Cup starting soon. I think that the depth of our squad, it could be an issue, and we may well find that there's going to be a spell later in the season where we maybe do struggle to get consistent results. So let's keep this run going, but it's going to be a really, really tough game. Newcastle are a very good side. They've got the best defensive record in the Premier League. They're going to be very, very difficult to break down. And as we know, they've got a goal threat, particularly away from home, where they've been scoring freely in recent months. So it's going to be a really tough game. I do feel as though this could be a real defining game in the season for both of these sides. And I do feel as though both sides will probably be reasonably happy if it finishes in a draw, as I think it probably will. My score prediction in this game is going to be Arsenal 1, Newcastle United 1. But I do feel as though Arsenal have got enough to win this game. Let me know what you think your score prediction is going to be in the comments below. So that is our preview there of this big game on Tuesday evening at the Emirates, our first game of 2023. Let's start the year as we finished the last one. But I say it's going to be a really difficult game against a very good Newcastle side. Coming up on the channel then, we've got some great shows for you. We've got Billy from the Toon Review coming on the channel tomorrow to look ahead to this game. We're going to get a Newcastle perspective on all the things to do with this game. Then on Monday evening, we've got the Arsenal review show back with the guys. We're going to be looking back at the victory over West Ham, the victory at Brighton, looking ahead to this Newcastle game, and also as well the start of the FA Cup against Oxford. We'll also have a brief look back on what has been a very progressive year of 2022 for Arsenal. All that's coming up on Monday at 8 o'clock, so please join us for that. Also as well, of course, on Tuesday, we've got to watch along this big game at the Emirates, so please join us for that. We'll have some build up, all your team news, and then, of course, full match commentary and your viewer comments as always. So if any of that sounds like something you might enjoy, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you've enjoyed this preview video, please give it a like as well, because all that helps the channel to reach a large audience, helps the channel to grow. And in 2023, we've got some really big plans to keep progressing forward. It's been a good 2022 on the channel. We reached our 1,000 subscriber target. We managed to get the channel monetized, but we've got a lot more big plans to come this year. So please join us if you can by giving it a like and considering subscribing to the channel. So that's that for now. Then my name's Richard. This is over and over and over again. This has been the Arsenal versus Newcastle United match preview. We will see you on the next one.